I'm Linda Fox. I'm in the Phocuswire studio with Rob Torres of Expedia. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, lots to talk about. I think it was last year at your conference that you first talked about travel shops. Could you just give us an update about what's happening there?
Absolutely. We've come a long way since we introduced them last year. In fact, we introduced them in the U.S. Last year, but now we're in 11 markets around the world. And so for those who are familiar with what travel shops are, is they're really a shoppable marketplace for influencers, brands, destinations, anyone that basically gives them a home on our app where we can help monetize their content. Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting way to really help influencers, but only because now we know that a lot of inspiration comes from influencers. Yeah. And I'm sure you've seen it, some of the data we've seen is up to 70+% of consumers and travelers are now getting their inspiration from influencers. Yeah, so this was really a product that we've designed to really help support that and make it really easy for you to basically book what your favorite person that you're following is
the person
doing.
You trust. Yeah,
exactly.
On that, as you launch them in other parts of the world, do you have to localize them in any way? Is there different sort of maybe perhaps cultural nuances or any way that you might have to change them?
Well, we don't. I mean, basically, anybody that creates theirs, they can create it in whatever language and whatnot they want, and their content is certainly culturalized.
Yes, already.
Yes. And so we don't necessarily do anything, but we certainly help them create those if they need help. And create their shop.
I suppose you would already have sort of localized look and feel anyway, so you just sort of slot that in nicely.
Exactly.
Okay, so moving on to Instagram Reels, I find this fascinating, this idea, not just from you, I know that there are other companies kind of playing with it as well, but just bookable itineraries. So just, update us on where you are there.
Well, so that's the other thing. I mean, bookable itineraries are big, and everyone talks about that because you want to be able to, and AI is going to change that too at some point, but you want to be able to book what you're seeing in a seamless one push fashion, really. And so we've created this trip management tool that you're alluding to and talking about most recently, where if you're on Instagram, you can actually forward any reel that you found interesting to Expedia's Instagram handle. And then we use AI technology to automatically create a itinerary for you that is bookable. And you can do that with any reel that you see. And so it's really, we're seeing a good kind of interest in it from a lot of our players because they're going, oh, this is kind of cool that we can just forward it. And they're just doing it too to see, okay, what happens, what comes back, what do they recommend? Because obviously we might not offer all of the product or experiences that they're forwarding us to us, but we'll do our best to actually recreate that based on what we're seeing in that reel. And AI makes that happen.
I was going to say, can you, like you say, it might not be exactly what they've offered, but your depth and breadth of content must mean you can offer something that's sort of like
very similar to what the experience they're looking for.
Yeah. And that must really help conversion. I know you're not going to give away the keys to the castle, but it must be sort of quite highly convertible content.
Well, very convertible, and it's highly relevant. And so we know that the traveler, they're very interested in, obviously, whoever the reel that they've followed is. And so if we can actually provide some sort of itinerary that is very close to what they're looking for, the opportunity for converting is much higher than it might normally be if we're just providing multiple options.
So the last time we sort of spoke in depth was about commerce media. And I was looking at some Cody and Forrester research I think it's out this week actually. So 43% of companies generally have already adopted some sort of commerce media, which is, I think that's pretty big. That's growing quite significantly. Travel excels, so I'm reading here, travel excels in discovery at 60% and booking 68%, but falters in loyalty and in transit due to data fragmentation and long attribution. So just comment there around those trends. Is that broadly what you're seeing? Do you agree with the fact that, in transit and loyalty is not quite there yet? And equally, do you agree that the discovery and booking is there in terms of commerce media?
Well, I think there's opportunity around all of that.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely at those numbers. Everyone believes that anyone that has some great data believes that there's this opportunity to move into retail commerce. We call it travel media network that we're trying to build, but in the commerce space. And really, it goes back to what your question there is, the fragmentation of the journey and where people are getting inspired and where are they finding their information and how are you applying good data to help support what you're recommending. And so the media networks are allowing us to use our data to find these customers wherever they are, not just on our owned and operated sites, Expedia, Hotels.com, Vrbo. Certainly we do a great job of finding them. We collect a lot of data that then we can apply to help find those customers when they're off-site as well, or off-platform, when they're discovering social, which we know is so critical right now and a big part of where people are. And because if we can do a good job of applying that data and finding them, there is a better chance that they are going to convert when they get there because we're putting more relevant advertising in front of them. We can target much better.
Yeah.
We can target much more definedly of what they're looking for.
Yeah, because you're literally sort of filling in the gaps with the data, aren't you? You're joining those
and
dots.
That's where in the past we haven't really been able to do that. And then if you can provide closed loop measurement and reporting that shows an advertiser how these are all tied together and the return they're getting, and then they actually see the increase in for whoever, depending on their business objective or marketing objective, if they can see the increased conversions, it's a huge win for the advertiser. And that's why you're seeing it's really making a play right now. But the ones that really can do this well, you've got to have a lot of great first party data.
Right.
And that's the key to this.
Yeah.
And then be able to measure it.
Yeah.
And show how they're all tied together, all of those different parts.
I started to think just with those other kind of longer attribute elements, loyalty and in transit, I started to wonder if it wasn't just about kind of attribution and fragmentation, but also about kind of mindset. Are you in the same mindset when you're discovering and booking as you are in transit and when you're kind of being loyal to a brand?
I think it's just all part of the journey. And I think that, yes, there's parts that, you may be inspired to do something well before you're actually going to make that booking. Mm-hmm. But how you get inspired, and I always tell advertisers that if you're not showing up in the inspiration phase, there's no chance you're going to get the booking later down the road. And if it's transport or whatnot, again, if you're not inspired to do that trip early on, you may never have that opportunity, and maybe a competitor gets that opportunity. So I think that's really why it's so important to be involved and to go where the customers are.
Yeah.
And we know now they're all over, and
Yeah.
it's harder than ever to pinpoint exactly where they are.
Yeah, so you almost have to have some sort of commerce network and joining the dots with other brands and
absolutely. And then you don't, and a lot of other brands or maybe do something better than you do yourself. And so this really helps you align with some of these brands. And that's why we're aligning with a lot of different publishers that we know a lot of our travelers are spending time perusing their content. And so we're making that available. We're saying, okay, well, if we know that's great content, let's make that available to the brands that want to participate and advertise with us.
It strikes me that we used to talk about knowledge graphs or knowledge trees, 5 years ago. That actual concept is truly alive today, isn't
That's
it?
exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great way to describe it, and it's back.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I want to talk about a little bit about intent media because it's beginning to be spoken about. I think it was Gary Vaynerchuk first started talking about it, and this concept of delivering in the actual moment of need, I guess, or desire. Is that something, is that something that once you have the data, it's easy to sort of transfer the skills to do it? And two, do you see it catching on in the same way that commerce media is?
I do. As I think, and it goes back to the data. And if we have more of these intense signals, that we can actually then do a better job of targeting the audience earlier in up funnel and middle funnel and the top of the journey all the way down to the bottom. Mm-hmm. And it's these intense signals that are really helping us get there now. Yeah. We're getting to it's marketer's dream. We're getting to a place where we really will be able to provide relevance and personalization for every trip, regardless of what trip you're on.
Right.
And you and I know we take very, very different trips all the time. Business
exactly,
trips,
which is why
trips.
I kind of question personalization sometimes.
And I think AI, as these models get better and learn more about you and they know how to differentiate, we'll be able to personalize much better as well.
So Does that necessitate a sort of restructure of, the social channels? I just recall what Gary was saying about intent media and how it's no longer going to be about how many sort of followers you have, because it is about this delivering in the context. So do you already see that happening?
We do, because I think it's not the number anymore. It's the type of followers and the relevancy of those followers. And that is changing. I think people are finding that that's more important, is having target the right people or the right followers or the right influencers with the right intent signals.
Yeah.
And it's really understanding those signals and actually being able to market to those signals.
Okay. Wanted to talk a little bit about AI in marketing and discovery generally. It sort of feels like we're all sort of wondering a little bit about what direction it might go in. Obviously, if you have this great volume of data behind you, then you're in a great place. But do you sort of, how much time do you sort of sit and think it could go in this direction, it could go in this direction, and I've got 100 experiments so that we're covered in every alley? And do you feel that you can be covered, in every avenue? Big question.
That's a really tough question. Let's try to
dissect.
peel that back a little bit. I think you're talking about, can you be everywhere?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know if you can be everywhere, but you certainly need to be in, and you've got to be testing and testing and learning. And that's what EG is doing really well with AI right now. Testing, working with a lot of the LMMs, working, not just back end and tools and customer service, but front end too in marketing and how to become efficient and content creation. And that's one thing that we're finding on the advertising side, but overall has actually been a big benefit as well. And so I think if you're not testing and leaning in, you're never going to win in this space. But do we really know what the end game is? I don't think anyone does.
No.
But I think we're finding that, and we're learning along the way, but we're finding that there's a lot of opportunities for efficiencies, improvement, and we're finding that travelers, depending on what they're looking for, are really appreciate some of the tools that are being presented to them right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read recently, we launched the results of this study we did, the science of wanderlust.
The wanderlust. I was going to ask you about that. Not so much the trends, but the science behind it.
The science behind it. So this was literally kind of getting to part of that question too, is we wanted to figure out, is there science behind which content drives somebody in travel to actually purchase?
Yeah.
And is there something we can learn? And is AI going to help support that and really help us get better? We know it's going to help hopefully with personalization and relevancy, but actually what about content? What content is driving that? And can we apply some science to the art and magic of content creation? And what we learned, and so the study actually surveyed 7,000 people, but also did some eye tracking and whatnot to really understand how people were feeling during this and showing them different content. And they saw a variety of content. Some was enhanced by AI, some was fully AI driven, some was fully content driven, non-AI enhanced at all. And a lot of learnings came out of that. And what content resonates most and what type of content resonates most. A couple of interesting facts I'll show you is the type of content. I mean, video. Roll to the top, over top. Yeah. And long form video was a wonderful one for travel. It created interesting, moments that people really drove inspiration and wanted to travel. And I don't think that was necessarily new. We know that video is drives.
Yeah, we know it's inspirational. We know.
Long time. Yeah. But it definitely proved the point that video works. Now, we also learned that there was certain time frames that worked best in the video. And did the video actually have a story a part of it? Or was it just beautiful video that really didn't tell a story, didn't capture as much attention and drive that booking as one that had a start, finish, end of what the story was all about, driving the video content.
Which is kind of what TikTok has been trying to sort of tell us all for a while.
And they were right onto something.
Yeah.
We also, learned that, let's talk about the AI and the some that were driven and enhanced by AI, some were all enhanced. Well, what we found was there was a good percentage of the travelers really, didn't mind, and actually, I don't say they preferred, but they did not mind the AI enhanced content as long as it did have some human touch in it as well. Okay. So there was still not all AI, but enhanced by AI could certainly be a benefit to content creation. We found there was a very small few that were like, okay, just show me AI or AI-driven created content 100%, and I'm fine with it. There was a small percentage that said, that looks great to us.
Yeah.
But it was a smaller percentage.
Okay.
So what we really learned from that is, hey, use the AI tools and make that happen, but also make sure the human touch is there. And that's why I say, okay, good content creators are not going away.
Yeah.
And good marketing is not going away, guys, because there's going to be still, that art is a big part of the creative process in that. And we learned that. Some interesting things where we've taken away. So the video was important.
Yeah.
But can we use AI to help create video assets to some extent? One place where we've been testing that is where in our lodging product, if we have a lot of still static images of hotels, but we know that click-through rate on video is much higher. We've been learning to actually create video, AI-driven video from the static that are pretty darn good, and they're still driving higher click-through rate than the static images themselves. So if a hotel really doesn't have any video assets, we can actually use AI to create some of this.
So then really, I mean, AI is helping you sort of sweat your assets, those sort of digital assets, even in an even greater way.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is exciting. Cool. Okay. You know, I think I asked you this before about differentiation when we spoke about commerce media. I guess I'm also beginning to think about it in terms of, you know, agentic, because we are beginning to see that coming. So, you know, if every consumer has an agent and they're exposed to this, you know, all these sets of data, then where is the travel provider, the travel supplier, going to provide that differentiation?
Well, this is a question a lot of us get as well. And I think one area that we're always going to be able to provide and win is on the customer service side of travel. And I think that's where you're always going to need that AI is, I mean, there's certain tools that AI can, and certain customer service requests that they can do, but there's the overall service level that has to be provided, and that customer trust and perspective that a traveler expects can't be driven by AI. And so I think there's a reality there that if you can still develop and deliver really good customer service, good recommendations that are proactive, that customers feel confident in and trust you in, you're going to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those that continue to do that will. Because you're right, there's going to be plenty of ways. There'll be new ways to create demand. There's going to be new ways to deliver through some of these agentic agents that you have. But at the end of the day, the agent's not going to be able to solve all these problems. And it's who do you turn to and who do you trust that's going to help you out when something goes wrong, or even help you out when things are going right and you want to add on.
So let's just wrap up. You know, looking ahead to 2026, we have had so many announcements in 2025. You know, it's hard to keep up with the pace. It does, and as you rightly said, we don't really know what's going to eventually work and what's going to stick and what's not. What we do know is that consumers seem to be driving this, and so it'll have to be what the consumers want. Do you see 2026 as a year when some of the clouds dissipate a little, it becomes a little more clear? And if so, what's going to move the needle for it to become clearer?
I think 2026 is still going to be a year of testing where we're still learning what sticks, what works. I think it'll be a little bit clearer potentially in who the winners are in the space. But I think we're still going to have new entrants as well. It's just the fact of being here and all the different AI startup type companies that are in there. I think we will learn a little bit more about what's working in the space in 26, but I don't think we're anywhere near having the answers to everything that it's going to work and what it's going to solve for and what it's going to do for us as a business and for others. I don't think 26 is going to do it. That's me necessarily in seeing what I'm
Well, you know, that
seeing.
means just another year of crazy.
I think it's going to be another year crazy, and I think it's going to be another testing, because I think there's I mean, I'm not going to name the company, but I was recently with a company that literally hasn't even leaned in to testing any of this yet. And there's a lot of reasons for it they had. But I'm like, oh my gosh. And now they're already feeling way behind when they're reading about some of the stuff that Expedia Group is doing. And I'm like, well,
but I think you can catch up relatively quickly.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's like, we're nowhere near where it's going yet.
I mean, we are, and we know some stuff, and we've experienced some stuff, and we know what the challenges are. But I think you can, if you set your mind to it, probably catch up relatively quickly.
And because that's where I'm saying I think 26 is still going to be an opportunity for a lot of people to catch up. For those that are ahead, continue that drive, continue the testing, the new options that are coming down the road, partnerships, the new partnerships with a lot of these LLM models.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you briefly about that, because is there a sense that the LLMs also need to declare their hands a little bit more, if indeed they know what those hands are at this point?
I think so. I don't necessarily know if they do. I mean, a lot of people ask me, well, what's going to happen with monetization? There's got to be a monetization plan.
No, exactly. We don't know what those commercial
models are. And we don't know what it is yet. But there is going to be one.
Of course.
I mean, point blank.
Well, we're not here for free.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so there will be. But making sure we're ready for that, because like travel brands, I mean, are you developing content that's readily accessible for these models?
Right.
So when we do get these type of compensation models coming in place and commercial models coming in place, are you playing in that game, and are you ready, and are you surfacing? It's very much like search in the early days of search and SEO, and how are you making sure that you're showing up and you're developing great content that's making sure that it's coming to the forefront.
Yeah.
It's going to be more important than ever.
Yeah, fresh storytelling, etc., etc. Rob, thank you so much for joining us in the studio. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.